Welcome in to another edition of NBA Sound System Canada. It's the first week of September. I got my Panthers shirt on. Football is back. College football is back. NFL starts this weekend. NBA Hall of Fame or Basketball Hall of Fame is this weekend as well. So there's a lot going on in the basketball world. Before we get into everything that's been happening over the past few weeks, KI, what's up? What's good? What's happening?
Not a whole lot, man. Getting excited for week one of the NFL season.
Yeah.
I'm starting to slowly build up excitement for the NBA season, but I feel like you got to get through that week one NFL hurdle first. I know you're a little bit of a college football guy, so you got a taste of football this weekend. I'm not as much of a college football guy, so it didn't really scratch the itch the same way, but I'm fired up for week one this season. Excited to talk some hoops for now, and then we got, another month, 4 weeks, whatever it is, until teams report to training camp.
Yeah, so it's crazy, actually. I'm looking at it right now. I pulled up the NBA season key dates, media days for the teams that are going to play overseas preseason games, September 23rd. So we're not that far away from seeing, 3 weeks. We're seeing Nets, Knicks, Sixers, Pelicans, Suns all reporting. So we'll see the first look at guys in their new uniform. We'll see D Queen hopefully has the cast off his wrist by then, and all of those guys reporting for their new team. So you get right into the groove of football, and then you got NBA right there as well. And of course, we talked about opening night of the NBA season is going to be next month. October 17th is when preseason ends. October 21st is when the regular season starts. Okay. Yeah, October 21st. So I guess we can start with the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's a pretty cool class. I think the headliners, Carmelo Anthony, Dwight Howard, also got superb Maya Moore, Sylvia Fowles, and the 2008 Redeem team, which lends itself to us talking about AmeriCup as well. Canada finishes fourth, USA finishes third. We'll get to that in a second. But some legends, some real legends going in. I know we've talked a lot about Dwight Howard not necessarily getting the respect that he deserves. You and I were yelling from the clouds. Anybody who would hear, listen, Dwight Howard should have been in the NBA 75. Doesn't get that, but he does get Hall of Fame. And Shaq is going to be there with him. So I think they buried the hatchet. But also Melo as well, who ties into somebody else who retired this week. But Hall of Fame class, it hasn't been talked about that much, but it's a really good class.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more surprised that people aren't talking about it more because Shaq is presenting Dwight Howard, and those guys have had endless beef for basically Dwight's entire career ever since Superman is in the building. So, I'm sure there will be some quotables that come out of whatever the hell Shaq says during Dwight Howard's Hall of Fame speech. But like you said, man, Dwight Howard, one of the most dominant big men of our generation, more than deserved getting into the Hall of Fame, should have been NBA 75. There are few big men in the NBA in our generation. We saw the Dirks and the KGs, Tim Duncans, you know what I mean? But Dwight at his peak, he was up there with just about anybody that we've seen, in terms of rebounding, in terms of defense, just physical dominance. He had a crazy, crazy stretch from, probably 08 until 2012, really.
Yep.
Where
you hit it right away. 08, 2012, 5-time All-NBA first team. He's the best center in the league for at least 5 straight years.
And the numbers are insane. I'm pulling them up now too, but it's led the league in rebounding 4 out of those 5 years, 14 per game, almost 14 per game the next year, 13, 14 and a half, 14.1, and he's putting up 20 points on the other end to go with it too, while being the best defensive player in the league. I almost think that because of the big personality, and he kind of shot himself in the foot with things that he said sometimes. Yeah. And, he was a little bit of a diva. I almost think that it made people forget just how dominant Dwight Howard was.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing. I think people, he was not necessarily polarizing in the sense that he did things that were good or bad. I think he just was as far as his relationships with the media and stuff like that, people got a little annoyed with him. I always think about his classic, his 1 year in Charlotte. They're like, hey, if the Hornets win the championship, LOL. Would you go to the White House? He said, nah, I'm going to go to the White House. And that sums up, the Dwight Howard experience of the type of stuff that he has said and done throughout his career. But to be said also, I think 2-3 years later, that championship with the Lakers, do they win without him? Maybe. But I know that a lot of the things that he did, especially in that Nuggets series, just kind of being annoying to Nikola Jokic and, things that he did as a big and effort plays and stuff that he did running the floor, playing well off of LeBron. He was a big role in that championship team. And I want to say he started a couple games in that championship run that the Lakers had in 20. He started 7 games in the playoffs that year. Like the numbers don't jump off the page, but he averaged, 6 points, 4.5 rebounds, as a 16th year player, playing for a championship team. And he got that championship. And I think that for him, that's kind of a bow on the career and everything he did. And he led that Magic team, to the finals in 2009 as well, a team that was very much ahead of his time. And they knocked off Bron in the conference finals as well. So, when we look back, a lot of the things that Dwight did, and I think that, again, like you said, the personality or whatever, kind of makes people not really think about, a guy can't be silly and dominant, but that's the truth. He was a goofy dude, and he also dominated. Because you think about it, too, that Magic finals run, he was number one pick in 2004. That was his 5th season in the league. Like, he was a young dude leading them there, and I think that also a big part of the beef with Shaq. You say that real quick, I just got to say, this is how far it goes back. This is like when Twitter was like not even a thing yet. November 19th, 2008 from Shaq. So you wear a cape and win a dunk contest and they call you Superman. So that was what he tweeted about Dwight 17 years ago.
and so here he is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, yeah.
And they were both active players too at that time. Like Shaq was like still playing at that time. Like, so that just speaks to it. But it's good to see that maybe they're burying the hatchet and, bygones will be bygones and they'll get to share the stage. And, two goofy guys who were by Superman and both played for the Lakers and the Magic. Like, I understand the overlap between what they both did and what they both did well. Could cause for a little bit of button heads and maybe some jealousy that they would never admit is jealousy. But, that'll be fun to see and good to see Dwight get his. It feels weird. It feels like this is quick because he just played like with the Lakers like a couple years ago, but he's in there now. So here we are.
Yeah, I do want to emphasize how important he was to that 2020 bubble team because again, there was a lot going on in the world. I don't know how dialed into NBA people were as much as you and I were. But Dwight really made a massive difference in that, like you said, in that series against the Nuggets, against Nikola Jokic. He played so well that he ended up starting into the NBA Finals against the Heat. I feel like Rondo gets a lot of flowers for what he did for that team as a veteran. I'm not sure that Dwight gets that same level of respect, and I feel like he deserves about the same level of respect because they both made a similar impact. But I actually have something for you on the Dwight Howard topic that kind of had my group chat on fire a couple of weeks ago. It was just one of those off-season, I'm in a heated debate right now, rank these 4 players at their peak. So I'm going to put you on the spot real quick.
Okay.
Dwight Howard, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, DeMarcus Cousins.
Dang.
It's not an easy.
It's not as easy as you would think, question. Right?
And with all due respect to Boogie, I actually think that you could order the other 3 in any order and be correct as long as Boogie isn't first. And that's peak Boogie was insane.
Peak Boogie was
all right,
disgusting.
So what do you
really
got?
ridiculous.
If you got to rank those 4,
55-point game that he had, he was nasty.
Crazy.
Boogie was nasty.
But so if you had to rank those guys, how would you put them?
Oh man, that's tough. But I'm not gonna belabor the point. I'm gonna go real quick off first instinct. I'm going to go AD. Did I go AD? AD, Dwight, Joel Embiid. And if I had 2 more minutes to answer, I probably would have reordered it. But I'm just thinking about but the peak. I'm actually putting Dwight first because the AD. I think peak AD is not as consistent as far as what you're going to get. You're going to get a peak version of him, but a peak version of him is 35 one night. And it's another night it's 15, but he's dominating in all the other facets of the game, which was 2020, right? So I think that just knowing what Dwight was, that 2009, and you talked about 5 years in a row of being the league's best center. I'm going Dwight, AD, and Embiid. Is that what you did, or what would you end up saying?
I actually had the order that you first had. I went AD, Dwight, Embiid, and then Boogie. And that's where I'm but there's not really a wrong answer there. If you want to put Dwight first, that's totally reasonable. His peak, you could argue, was better than AD and Joel Embiid's peak. And I think the consistency aspect that you brought up, just getting it done on both ends of the floor, on the glass, on defense every single night. How many times have we said on this podcast that Anthony Davis, when he wants to be a top 5 player in the league, he can be a top 5 player in the league, but he doesn't always show up every night like he wants to be a top 5 player in the league. So to that point, I got no beef with the list that you just put together.
Yeah. And I think one last thing on Dwight is just thinking about, we were spoiled. And a lot of times we talk about how LeBron has skewed the expectations for what guys do late in their career. Him and Dwight and really, it's a different level, but as far, T-Mac and KG, but none of this happens without KG. But T-Mac, it took a little time. It took time for KG as well. But like LeBron and Dwight, what they did fresh out of high school, 18 years old, we're at prom one day and they're summer league the next day. Like that, you know what I mean? Like that's like crazy to think about. And like, you know, guy came to the league, had braces. You know what I mean? Like this dude was like a teenage kid in the league and was, you know, again, like I said, 5 years in, 23 years old, doing this thing and playing well. So to shift it real quick, also you talk about, I said KG paved the way for a lot of guys. Melo, as far as one and dones go, right? Like I know there was Jamal Crawford, early 2000s or whatever, and it wasn't a rule that made you be a one and done. But thinking about Melo, and again, this is the Basketball Hall of Fame. So thinking about what he did and what he meant for Cuse and that 1 year, my first year living in New Orleans, Final Four was there. That was a banger of a Final Four. Melo was there. D-Wade was there, who was presenting Melo naturally. Kansas was out there as well, and Texas was there too, TJ Ford. For him to win that championship, go to Denver, and the Nuggets were a laughingstock, just like the Cavs were, you know, when they picked first and third. And Melo really made the Nuggets cool. And it's crazy to think that 15 is not going to get retired for him now there, but it is what it is. And that's probably why we talked about him, you know, being a Knicks legend, as we said now when we're talking about 2K. But Melo, you think about his career, him being a Hall of Famer, you know, this is well-deserved and well-due. And I think another guy who doesn't necessarily get talked about how dominant and how good he was, you know, during his peak in the league.
Yeah, I mean, first off, the picture of him with the newspaper after winning the championship, like that is like one of the most iconic pictures in March Madness history. And you know, headband, Cuse, Melo with the you know, he had the braids going, like that's about as cool as you can get on a college basketball stage. And then to come into the NBA and dominate the way that he did right away, I think he had I don't remember whose pod he was on. It might have been his own the other day, but he still feels like he should have won Rookie of the Year over LeBron. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, hey, he's got a case too there, but I think he's like one of the biggest kind of like casualties of ring culture because he never got that ring. But also like, I do love that people have learned to give him respect as like Captain America and, you know, all the gold medals that he's won. And by the time that he retired with USA Basketball, he was the program's all-time leading scorer and had the most gold medals. I know Kevin Durant has since passed him. But, you know, I think that he does get a lot of flowers for the way that he, you know, constantly showed up every single summer for Team USA, no matter the tournament, no matter, you know, the stage, everything like that. He always put on ridiculous performances. And then, you know, I still just think he's one of those players that like, I put him in the same light as Kobe in the sense that like, he was so iconic to what he did. Like you will still see people at the park practicing, like going around the jab step, like, you know what I mean? Like Melo was just like such a cool hooper that like, I feel like he's someone that really, you know, three ball to the head, like that's going to be a celebration forever. Like
I got it out of here.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, a little NSFW there, but you know, like all of those things, like, you know, kind of build into like the lore that is Carmelo Anthony. And I feel like that is something that like Hoodie Melo, like the list goes on and on and on. I mean, even like this dude was the original, like his entire body was covered in accessories. Like he spent he was wearing he had the knee pads going, he had double arm sleeves, he had the headband going. Like Melo was just a cool hooper, someone that I feel like everybody liked to watch play. You know, he's someone who I feel like left a lasting impact on the game of basketball that goes beyond the accolades and, you know, the fact that he never ended up winning a championship. I feel like that's stuff that as we've gotten further removed from his retirement from the NBA and from basketball, people have kind of started to get away from like, oh, but he never won a championship. It's more like appreciating the things that he did do. And I think this weekend at the Hall of Fame is going to be, you know, another example of that. And, you know, one of the best players one of the best scorers that we saw of our generation and honestly of all time in NBA history.
I was going to say, when I think about Melo, sometimes a Jeezy lyric comes to mind. He goes, just like the boy Carmelo in the paint, you can't hold him. And I remember I was like, can you not hold Melo in the paint? And this came out like 2009, 2010. I was like, man, when you watch him with his back to the basket, turn his face, he jabs you, whatever it is, good luck. I know you hear so many guys talk about who was the hardest player for them to guard, and Melo is often the answer. Think about his size and everything. And then it's really cool you pointed out a lot of the cultural significance that he had. And I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure, almost positive, he's got to be the first person to get their own signature shoe with Jordan Brand. And I think back to like, you know, the Melo 1.5s, the first ones that was the hybrid between the ones and the twos. And I had a pair of them. I was like, and then I had the high tops and the low tops. And just like the baby blue and yellow colorways of all the different Melo sneakers. Yep. Again, it made the Nuggets cool, man. I had multiple Melo jerseys. I had the navy one with the yellow script nuggets. I had
the baby blue.
White.
I had the baby blue.
You know what I'm saying? We had it all covered then because I had a white one. The first one I had was the white one. I'll never forget, man. Shout out to Melo. First day of 6th grade, I had the white Nuggets jersey, some blue shorts, and some baby blue NBA socks. I was like, yeah, I'm out here.
No way.
I also had a Melo Oak Hill jersey when Jordan Brand started doing those too. So Melo is a big time cultural guy, cool dude that we all like enjoyed watching growing up. And it's cool too that, we mentioned Melo, we mentioned Dwight, they both were on the Redeem team. So that entire squad is going in, and we know what they meant for USA basketball. Real quick, obviously got to talk about on the women's side, Sue Bird, talk about champion in every sense of the word at UConn with Seattle Storm. Dope statue, by the way. I don't know if you saw my tweet, but her statue outside statue. with the Hirachi 2K4s on. I was like, that if you could put me in for life, immortalize me in a sneaker, Hirachi 2K4 is like probably one of the first ones I'm naming. So her, shout out to her. Sylvia Fowles, LSU legend, also did a lot in the W. And then Maya Moore. I want to take time to talk about Maya Moore because you talk about what ifs in sports. Oftentimes it is because of injury, but Maya Moore had a bigger purpose, and she retired with a lot left in front of her, but again, bigger purpose, social justice, criminal justice reform, and left the game. But talk about what she did at UConn, like only played in the W for 8 seasons. In those 8 seasons, won MVP in year 4 and won a handful of championships with the Lynx, 6-time All-Star, 3-time All-Star MVP, scoring champ, steals champ, did it all. So shout out to it's a great women's class when you think about what they did. And then Sue Bird obviously playing in the Olympics for almost ever, like 5-time gold medalist as well. So really dope class on the women's side as well.
Yeah, Maya Moore is someone who, like, every single time that I'm in Sylvia Fowles too, honestly, is popping up on a lot of these like search queries when I'm like going through to search WNBA stats for, like, all right, how many people in WNBA history have done this? And it's like, when it comes to like rebounds, Sylvia Fowles is going to be on that list every single time. And, I think Maya Moore is somebody who, like, at the time, she was a big name that, like, she was making her way on SportsCenter. You'd see the highlights, things like that. But since I wasn't really like tapped into the game, I never really got into the games. I never really got to like appreciate her as much as I feel like I could have and should have. But she is definitely one player that, like, I wish she was still playing today, or like the peak of her career was today, where I'm a little bit more involved in watching WNBA games every single night and would have been able to appreciate her talent more, because there are a lot of people that feel like she's the greatest women's basketball player of all time. Right. But like you said, she just cut her own career short because she was working on bigger things, things that are bigger than basketball, which, respect to that as well, obviously. But, it would have been cool to see that career play out, because there are a lot of people that feel like she could have been the greatest women's basketball player of all time.
Yeah, 100%. And we talk about Caitlin Clark all the time, right? And what she does for the game. And ask her, who was the person that inspired her to play? And I never seen, you think about how big of a star Caitlin Clark is now. I remember Maya Moore surprised her at her senior night. I've never seen a star of Caitlin Clark's caliber get starstruck and just like get as giddy as I saw when Maya Moore surprised her. And I remember Caitlin Clark was like, I'm fangirling so hard right now. Like, we've seen Caitlin Clark hang out with Taylor Swift and like all these people, but when Maya Moore turned the corner at Carver Hawkeye Arena in Iowa, she just freaks out. Like, Maya Moore inspired a generation in the way that she played and the way that she was able to do everything as a 6-foot forward. And again, to do what she did, winning again. UConn, if you went to UConn, you won. You won at UConn, and she won in the W as well. And she played with her and Simone Augustus and Sylvia Fowles also was playing in Minnesota as well. Like, it's a squad. It's crazy that they let them 3 get together. And real quick, I want to give a shout out to Sylvia Fowles, obviously LSU. And we were talking about Dwight's resume. Hers is pretty similar, except she's got an MVP to her name, 8-time All-Star, 2-time champ, 2-time block champ, 4-time defensive player of the year, 11-time all defense, 8-time all WNBA, and 2-time finals MVP. So another one, which, like, you talk about those like linked squads that won championships, like, who's going to get finals MVP? Is it going to be Maya Moore? Is it going to be Sylvia Fowles? Is it going to be Simone Augustus? So, they had a squad, they had a team, and it's cool now that, the interest is growing in the W, that now people are kind of looking back at the history and kind of what made it happen, for the generation of players that we have now. Because name all these players, all of them will be looked at as inspiration, and all of them, I'm sure, are said as inspiration. Real quick, I do want to say we talked about the Redeem team going in, led by Coach K, obviously, and all those guys. Jim Boeheim's going to be there. Chris Bosh will be there. J. Kidd, D. Wade, obviously going to be there already for Melo. But we did talk about AmeriCup. Canada ends up finishing fourth, losing to the USA in the third place game. Brazil wins. Bruno Caboclo, Raptors legend, is named to the All-Star 5. And then for relevance, you got Keyshawn George making the All-Star 5 from Canada and Javonte Smart making the All-Star 5 from the United States. Not really much to take from it other than I did see some good moments from Keyshawn George, just see some good moments from Fiondu Kabengele as well as Leonard Miller. So hopefully that's good for them and their confidence moving forward. And, again, ultimately it comes down to it. Teams like Brazil wasn't a high-scoring affair in the championship. I think the score was like 52-40, which is brings you back to high school. But 55-47. Basically brings you back to high school. But that being said, I think it is good to see like that. And also it speaks to the difference between a team like Brazil, who a lot of their guys played in the Olympics, and like knowing the familiarities and difference and having that FIBA experience kind of shows at the end of it all.
Yeah, the FIBA AmeriCup, I feel like that tournament kind of just like came and went, right? Like
9 days.
9 days and it's over. And the rosters leave a little bit more to be desired than like EuroBasket does. So like for me, I've been tapped into EuroBasket pretty much every single morning, mostly for work, but being able to watch guys like Jokic, Giannis, Luka, and some other guys have been going crazy in that tournament. I almost feel
Markkanen,
like last night I saw like, Lauri Markkanen went crazy. Simone Fontecchio had like a 39-point game the other day. Like, Dennis Schroeder's always balling. Franz Wagner's been playing really well. So, there's plenty of NBA players that are showing out there. I feel like last night, all of a sudden, I was scrolling on Twitter and I saw Langston Galloway posing with the bronze medal, and I'm like, "Oh, damn! The tournament already ended." Like it really did kind of just come and go like that. So it's one where there's not a ton, or there's not a lot of different ways to watch those games, so it's a little bit difficult to be tapped in like that. But with a tournament like EuroBasket going on, it's at least easy enough to follow along with that because there's so many high profile NBA players that are participating in that tournament that you almost got to pick a side there,
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like the difference is AmeriCup was August 22nd through August 31st, and EuroBasket August 27th through September 14th. 24 teams are out there playing. Obviously, that speaks to there just being more nations that are included in FIBA Europe versus FIBA Americas. But, like you said, kind of getting into it and looking at these rosters and seeing, we're getting toward the knockout round. We're seeing Giannis do some things. It was interesting to see those quotes from Darvin Ham, which people, of course, had fun with because it was Darvin Ham. But saying, Greece does way more sets and stuff. And like Giannis is just Superman when we're playing with the Bucks. Was like, we all kind of knew that. But then when you said it, it kind of sounds funny. But yeah, seeing Serbia, I know Bogdanovic is out for the remainder of the tournament with a hamstring. So that could put a damper on their chances and their opportunities to win it all. But, again, you look at these teams and obviously Luka Doncic is good enough. He's won it before. But, kind of feels like it's going to come down to, Germany kind of feels like the most complete team. We've seen them win the World Cup. We've seen them compete at a high level, basically at every international tournament that they're in. And then when it comes down to like, Serbia having the best player or Greece having the best player, depending on who you ask, you always have a chance when you have those guys and they're healthy. So that being said, I guess looking forward to what you've been impressed by specifically. We can talk a little bit more about EuroBasket and then how much you take from it. Like, I know we talked coming into it that Şengün could take what he is doing there and bring that back to the Rockets. Another one, Tristan da Silva is a sneaky X factor for the Magic moving forward. I know he's a guy who you kind of spoke highly of during the draft process before. So guys like that, I think are the cool ones to see out here where it's like, hey, this guy could parlay a good summer, a good fall into training camp and really kind of get that momentum going into the next season.
Big time. Yeah. I mean, Lauri Markkanen, I feel like it was 2 years ago or whenever the last EuroBasket was like, for him, it's like, that's exactly what it is. It's trying to play up the trade value, but like the momentum is real. Like Lauri Markkanen, I feel like took that into the best season of his NBA career, the summer going into, whenever he was last in All-Star, I think it was 2 years ago, and he put up crazy numbers. And obviously like their situation's unique where they're literally losing games on purpose. Like I was looking at it the other day, the Jazz are projected to win 18 games this year. That is the lowest projected win total since the process Sixers in 2015. And they were projected to win 16 games. So that goes to show you that no matter what type of momentum Lauri Markkanen is bringing in, that's not going to change the Jazz's direction, at least according to Vegas. But, like he's a player that's been going crazy. Like you said, Alperen Şengün's been playing really well. Obviously, Jokic, Luka, and Giannis are all dominating. But even guys like Denny Avdia, to me, he's been playing really, really well for Israel. And he's someone who he had a really strong end of the season last year with the Blazers, and it almost goes under the radar because the Blazers weren't really fighting for the playoffs. I mean, they were kind of fighting for that last play-in spot. But, that was a team that had a top 5 defense in the league after the All-Star break last year. And they're bringing in Drew Holiday. And I know Damian Lillard's not going to play this year, but, that's another veteran presence back on the bench.
Yeah.
And someone like Denny Avdia really stepped up at the end of the year. And, you kind of forget this guy was a top 5 pick. So it's him being able to showcase what he's capable of, being a go-to guy, and then bringing that sort of momentum back to a Blazers team that probably has a chance to be more competitive than people even realize.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're one of the sleeper teams in the West that could sneak into a play-in spot this year that wasn't in one last year. This is a good opportunity for him to prove hey, this is what I can do when I have the ball in my hands, when I am the number one option. So it's cool to see guys operate like that. And then, like I said, there are players like Dennis Schroeder that always show out for their national team. And he's someone that right now, he's the projected starting point guard for the Sacramento Kings going into this season. So can he carry that momentum into bringing that type of swagger to Sacramento where they're going to desperately need it this year? So, I don't know how much you can necessarily take away from obviously guys like Giannis, Luka and Jokic are going to dominate the competition because they do that at the NBA level. But to me, it's the guys it's the NBA players that are playing in bigger roles than they do at the NBA level, building that type of confidence and carrying that into training camp and carrying that momentum into the 25-26 season.
Yeah, and I'll throw another name out there as well, which is a proven older guy. And I think I'm happy to see him healthy. I think everybody had eyes on Kristaps Porzingis and what's going on with him. Yeah. And obviously had a rough end to the season, undisclosed illness. We may not ever know what's happening. But the fact that he's back on the court and he looks like he's playing well, and he is a massive swing for, talk about the Hawks. We talked about how they won the offseason. And them winning the offseason largely hinges on the pieces falling into place the way that they want them to fall into place. And hey, if you're 7'3" stretch big man is knocking down shots and playing well and can give you 25, 28 good minutes a game, that goes a long way with what they're trying to do, the way they've built around Trae Young, who, by the way, doesn't throw the ball off the backboard anymore because it doesn't count as an assist.
Thought about bringing that up at some point in this pod, so I'm glad you hit that too.
See, there you go for that. He's another one. So I'm excited to see. We'll be back on here before that tournament wraps up. But I'm excited to see how it plays out and, who ends up coming out on top. And then we can look forward. And I'm sure this upcoming season, if it's Schroeder with the Kings who have some stuff they need to figure out and whoever it is, who does parlay whatever they do this summer or this EuroBasket into next season, because it's a proven method of getting some good reps in and getting the confidence up going into the upcoming season.
Man, so I just looked it up. That Lauri Markkanen year, so it was 2022 EuroBasket that he really went crazy. He averaged 14.8 points per game with the Cavs the year prior.
Forget he played for the Cavs.
He went into that first season. I know, right? He went into that first season with Utah. He averaged 25.6 points per game, 8.6 rebounds, and the dude was shooting basically 50-40 from the field, and he ended up winning Most Improved Player. So it's that momentum is real. You build up that swagger, being the go-to guy. I fully believe in it. And I feel like you and I both do because, for so long we were covering international basketball for NBA Canada, NBA Australia, all these different, all the NBA international sites. So it gives us a little bit more of an appreciation for these international tournaments, I think, than the casual basketball fan. But if you pay attention to these tournaments and then see the way that these players carry that momentum into the regular season, it's not very hard to see that, you really can bring that momentum into or parlay that momentum into a breakout NBA season, if you play well in these tournaments over the summer.
Yeah, 1,000%. So I'm excited to see that. And again, like you said, we got to give a shout out too for Raptors fans, Goga Bitadze. Sorry, not Goga. Sandro Mamukelashvili. Goga also playing for Georgia. But Mamu had a really big game when they upset Spain to start the season, the tournament. There's jokes about whatever, but the Raptors didn't really have the roster room to make any moves. But the one move they did make was signing Mamu. And he's had some big moments in short periods of time when he was with San Antonio. Seems like everybody that he's ever played next to or against has enjoyed playing with him. So, for Raptors fans, keeping an eye on what's happening out there, in the 4 countries that they're playing EuroBasket. Mamu is a guy who, spot minutes, backing up Pirtle or whatever. But if you can feel confident about like your big man rotation, he does some different things. He can space the floor a little bit. That could be something that Raptors fans keep an eye on. And as far as that goes, and, we talked about the roster and how it's taking shape and things that they're going to need to figure out. But that'd be a fun guy to have and have that be a good signing for you to just, again, 8 to 11 minutes off the bench is all you really can ask for from him. And then on some nights when guys are hurt, you can step in and play a bigger role. So his confidence is going to definitely be at an all-time high when he's back with that from there as well.
Yeah, and if you're a Raptors fan and you're looking to see, checking in to see how he's doing, he's on the box score as Alexander Mamukelishvili.
Yeah, there you go.
I did not even realize Alexander was his real name, and I'm kind of wondering how you get Sandro from Alexander. I guess
probably spelling, I would guess. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not.
I don't know. But I know that's one thing that like kind of went over my head when I was going through the rosters and plucking out who the NBA players were. I think I overlooked him the first time. And then when I was looking at the box score, I'm like, damn, Alexander Mamu. Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
So if you're looking to see,
baby.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're checking in on your Raptors at EuroBasket, that's the name that he's on the box score under.
That is, I'm trying to pick up the Republic of Georgia stats right now to put a bow on that, but they're in Group C. So up to this point through the tournament, through the first couple games as we're recording this, he's leading his team in points per game, 15.3 points, 4.3 boards, 3.7 assists per game as well. Not shooting well from beyond the arc, but he's taking 5 a game. So again, I was saying he can space the floor a little bit. He wouldn't be taking 5 a game if he didn't think he could knock him down. So yeah. But the assist numbers also stand out to me. I think didn't he like have a crazy stat line? I think he had like 34 points, something like that in like 15 minutes. Or it was something nuts last year with the Spurs. So again, he's a guy who, again, came in on a vet minimum. He's a younger guy, but will be fun to see. And again, seeing what he did against Spain was big for him. And then talking about breakout. So I guess to wrap up here, we can talk about breakout seasons and somebody who had one of the biggest breakout seasons in league history. And also a Raptors legend, a Raptors champion. Big tip of the cap, salute to Jeremy Lin. Announced his retirement officially. He's been out of the league for a while, but has still been playing overseas for the past couple of years. And I think that as far as like you can maybe get away with it, but it's hard to tell the story of the NBA without telling the story of Linsanity, just because it was so unlikely. We all have some type of memory from that run. And it really did feel like one of those things in real life where you're like, this is kind of like the plot of a movie. If this was the plot of the movie, I would say this is unrealistic. And here it is in real life happening. And he ended up making a really great career for himself after that run. He spent the last 2 years, 2 or 3 seasons playing for the new Taipei Kings. And now he's done with the game. But Linsanity, Jeremy Lin, what can we say about the career that he built for himself out of Harvard?
I think the coolest part about Linsanity is that, like, obviously the run itself was, like you said, it's something out of a movie that you wouldn't even believe if it happened in a movie. Yeah. But he was able to like actually sustain an NBA career after the Linsanity run, and not just because, he was like some show pony or something like that. Like, he was a legitimate contributor for the Rockets. Like, he was a legitimate contributor for the Hornets. Like, there was a couple stops after that he was still playing solid basketball. It wasn't just this one lightning in a bottle moment, but that really was like a where are you type. Like, I remember even like talk about being like a 2K junkie. Like, I remember even like creating updating the stats for Jeremy Lin on the game, because it was so long ago that they weren't even doing like weekly stat updates and stuff like that. So I went in and I'm like, bumping up his stats to get him up to like an 85, because like that's how well he was actually playing. And I was talking to Gil about this a little bit before we hopped on the pod, but I actually just out of nowhere, like, happened to get Celtics Knicks tickets for Christmas that year. And that was before the Linsanity run even started. So right. I had no idea. Like, I mean, that's obviously a marquee game anyway, but then all of a sudden, as it's building up, it's like, this is during the middle of Linsanity that this is happening. And I was sitting up in the bleeds watching the Linsanity run in real time. It was a crazy game. Jeremy Lin didn't have the best game comparatively to the rest of the Linsanity run, but he did have like a couple massive buckets in the fourth quarter. I remember he hit a huge 3 late in the fourth that I think either like tied the game or made it like a 1-point game. The game ended up going into overtime, and I forgot this tidbit, and I can't believe I forgot this tidbit, but when I was looking back at the box score, Rajon Rondo in that game, my boy, my favorite player of all time, ended up with a 18-point, 20 assists, 17 rebound triple-double, which is downright insane. Paul Pierce pretty much hit a game winner in overtime. I do remember that. But just the buzz of being in the building during the Linsanity era. And then I think it was a couple games after that he ended up having that little back and forth with Kobe. That really had everything. And it was a moment that is still to this day talked about like it happened yesterday in sports. Yep. Everybody remembers the Linsanity moment because of how big of a deal that was and how out of nowhere that came from. Undrafted dude from Harvard, like you said, who was, I think, staying on somebody's
Landry
couch. Landry Fields' couch. On Landry Fields' couch, insane. Just, something that, again, I think you put it perfectly. If it happened in a movie, you'd be like, what am I watching? This would never happen in real life. So shout out to Linsanity. Shout out to a good career, solid career, NBA champion, lasting impact on the NBA as well. Something that people will remember, for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I was saying a great dude to boot. The year he was with the Raptors, he ended up coming from Atlanta, I think. I remember we set up interviews when they came to Charlotte at the end of the year, and I interviewed him, and he was a great guy. I remember I asked him what he thought about Pascal Siakam, and he was like, yeah, he reminds me of Giannis a little bit. And I was like, interesting. But now, a couple All-Stars and, Eastern Conference Finals MVP later and all that stuff. Obviously he doesn't play like Giannis, but he does have his own, unique thing that he brings. I'm just looking at the Linsanity thing, and it's just crazy to see, it's during the lockout season. They play in Boston on the front end of a back-to-back. He scores 2 points in 6.5 minutes. The next game goes to New Jersey or goes back home to Madison Square Garden, scores 25 against the Nets in a 7-point win. Next game, 28 points. Next game, 23. And then the Lakers game, when all this stuff's happening with Kobe, and it's there's no way. This is when it ends. 38 on ESPN. And that was oh, wait, this is real. And then it was the game in Toronto, the game-winning three to wrap up a 27 and an 11 assist game. And it was oh, this is legit. This is for real. And you mentioned that. And I think back to, when he was with Charlotte, and I think that got him paid. And obviously he had the bad injury when he started off in Brooklyn. But, I remember that was the blueprint, I think, to how to build around prime Kemba Walker. Have a secondary guard with a little bit more size that also can run your offense and let Kemba kind of pick and choose his spots. And I feel like the Hornets' last playoff team had Jeremy Lin on it, and I think that he was a big reason why they ended up having to pay Batum or him, and they chose Batum. And Hornets fans here still boo him every time they play him. It's not his fault. If they offer me that check, I'm signing it too. But when I think about Jeremy Lin, I definitely think about that. And I remember actually way back when the point guard who played with him at Harvard is from Charlotte, and I remember meeting him before Jeremy Lin even blew up. And I was like, yeah, is this guy going to make it? It's yeah, man, I played him in practice every day. He's different from any player that I've ever played against. He's going to be good. I was like, yeah, whatever. You're saying that because he's your guy. But it panned out. It worked out. He made a career out of it, averaged just under 12 points per game for his career, won a championship, and got some 6 Man of the Year votes as well that year in Charlotte. So tip of the cap to Jeremy Lin. Excited to see whatever he's got going for the next stage of his career. I wouldn't be surprised to see him as one of those guys, all the players we named that are doing the media for the new networks. I wouldn't be surprised to see him somehow get his way in there as well.
Yeah, or even I could see him being a front office type of guy. He's someone who, and I think I didn't read through the entire Instagram post that he had, officially retiring from basketball, but I do feel like I caught a snippet somewhere on Twitter saying that he still wants to be involved in the game, which doesn't surprise me either. So, whether that's as an ambassador, whether that's as an ambassador or from a front office standpoint or getting into it, on the broadcasting side of things, Jeremy Lin probably isn't going away anytime soon. It was cool to see him at the Valkyries game this weekend, soaking in some WNBA action and getting a little bit of flowers from both the broadcast and just on social media shortly after he announced his retirement. So, again, shout out to Linsanity, shout out to Jeremy Lin.
Yeah, there it is. Big shout out to Jeremy Lin again. Always, I got it right here, so I'll just how you wrap it up, man. You can't take that away from Jeremy Lin. I have the hat here from last time we talked about Masai, so we'll use it to talk about Jeremy Lin as well. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you who subscribe to the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and as well on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram. NBA Soundsystem Canada is the handle. Football season is here, but we know for you hoop-starved fans who maybe haven't found a way to watch Eurobasket, season's right around the corner. We'll be talking about basketball games basically in about a month's time. So just buckle up. We'll be ready for that as well. And there's still some free agents that are trying to find their destination. So whenever that happens, if ever that happens, we'll talk about that as well. For Kyle Irving, my name is Gil McGregor. As always, again, thanks for tuning in. We will catch you back here on NBA Soundsystem Canada.